Hi everyone, I can see that the attendees are still rising, so I'll just wait a couple of moments before I get started. Okay, great. I think we have most people here. So hello, welcome to today's webinar. In fact, before I get started, could I just do a quick sound check to make sure that you can all hear me? So if you could just type a yes in the question and answer box, just let me know. Okay, great. I'm getting a lot of yeses. That's great. Thank you, everyone. So I'll proceed. So good afternoon or good morning or good evening, wherever it is that you're dialing from today. My name is Mandeep Mahal, and I'm a senior advisor here in the MBA Recruitment and Admissions team at Oxford Said Business School. And in today's webinar, I'm going to be touching on application tips. So I expect that you're all in different stages. Some of you may still be early in your MBA research and just starting to consider the programme. And then there will be many of you, I guess, who are in the process of drafting your application and aiming to submit for our stage 1 deadline, which is next Friday. I've got some slides to go through that will approximately take 40 to 45 minutes, touching on the application process and sharing advice and tips as you prepare your MBA application. And then afterwards, I'll have some time for some questions. And in fact, what you can do, please go ahead and use the Q&A function to submit your questions as they come through, as they spring to mind. I won't get to them until I've gone through the slide deck. And also, if I could ask that you use the Q&A function and not the chat. Okay, so let's take you to Oxford. So when you think about Oxford and the university, this picture would come to mind. So Oxford is known as the city of dreaming spires. And when you think about Oxford, you think about the medieval heart of the city, the college system, the Sheldonian Theatre where you matriculate and graduate from, the Radcliffe camera, which you can see in the forefront of this picture. And it's really important to know, when applying to the MBA at Said Business School, it's not just the business school you're applying to. You're applying to do an MBA at a business school that is an academic department at one of the greatest universities in the world. And as an MBA student, you'll become a member of a college, which really adds to the value and your experience at Oxford. You get to spend time with students who are from all over the world, studying fascinating subjects. And with your college, you'll be able to join a sporting club or a society. The collegiate system is really unique, and it will certainly be valuable to your experience at Oxford. But then moving on, in contrast, here is the business school. So very modern. The business school opened in 2001, and I believe we admitted our first MBA student in, I believe it was in the mid to late 90s. So we are an incredibly young business school when comparing to the wider university. So the building itself, it's conveniently located opposite the Oxford train station. So if you are travelling to London for networking events or job interviews, very convenient. And as you can see, the building is very modern. Everything you need for your MBA is in this building. So this is where lectures will take place. There is a library on the first floor, so you might be able to see some of the desks there on the first floor on those windows. Our Careers Development Centre is here. So everything you need for your MBA. And here at Oxford, you really do get the best of both, the old and new. So a new business school, but then embedded in the wider university that has its unique history and traditions. Okay, so if we look at the class profile, and this is our class profile that started in 2019. So our 2020 class will be commencing soon. They'll be starting in, I believe, just shy of 3 weeks. So we are still finalising those details. So I would say do check the website in the next few weeks, and we will have an up-to-date class profile for 2020. But in the meantime, if I just go through the 2019 class. So we had a class size of 329, and we typically have, we tend to have a class size of around 320 to 330. As you can see, it's very diverse in terms of nationalities. So 95% of the class is international. It really is a rich mix, and you'll be able to learn and have great conversations with people from across the globe. We're really proud to have 44% of the class female. It's something we're really focused on and committed to reach gender parity, and it shows that we're moving in the right direction. And then for averages, for those who are interested, normally people do come onto the MBA with 5 years experience. We certainly have students who come with more or less. That's not the entry criteria for work experience on the MBA, and I will touch on the criteria for the programme later in the next few slides. And then for standardised tests, the median GMAT is 690. And then for those who are considering the GRE, we do accept the GRE, and I will also touch upon that later on in the presentation. But the median GRE is approximately 160, 161 on the verbal and the quantitative. Okay, so application deadlines. So we are open, applications are open for 2021. We opened on the 1st of August, and we have 4 stage deadlines. So what that means for applications that are submitted by a relevant deadline, we gather them up and then they will be considered together in one of these stage deadlines. And in order for your application to be considered in any of these stages, it does need to be complete. And I will be going into detail later of all the details you need to provide, the documents you need to upload, etc. So you can see our first stage is approaching, and for those of you who are aiming for stage 1, it's next Friday, and it does fall at the end of the day, so 11:59 British Summer Time, UK time to be precise. In case any of you are dialing in today and are thinking to submit for stage 1 but have not started your application, so you haven't created an account on the application portal and are thinking if you have time to get the application ready, so you've got just over a week, or should you wait until stage 2? My advice is to apply when you're ready, when you feel your application is at its best. It's really important to note that you are applying to the University of Oxford, and you really want to be sure that it's the best, the most strongest application you can provide. You can only apply once in the admission cycle. So let's just say, as an example, you submitted in stage 1 and you were unsuccessful. You can't submit again for stage 2, 3, or 4. You would need to wait until the next academic cycle, 2022, to submit an application. I would say your chances of admission are going to be the same for stages 1 to 3. So whether you hit either of these deadlines, your chances of being invited for an interview and then receiving an offer are broadly the same. Stage 4 can be a competitive round. It's the last stage in the admission cycle. So there may be a wait list, but of course you're welcome to apply in stage 4 if that suits your schedule, and that's when you're able to submit your best application. Okay, so let's go through the application requirements and what it is you need to provide in your application. So we do ask for a bachelor's degree, and as you're applying to Oxford, you need to have done well. We ask for a UK 2-1 or above. So if you've not studied in the UK, equivalent to a UK 2-1 or above, it doesn't matter what subject you've read. And I touched on diversity in the previous slide in terms of the geographical diversity that we have, but our cohort is also diverse on an academic basis. So candidates have studied at various different degrees, and we're not really looking at the subject of your degree. Part of the application, you need to upload your transcripts, and that's your entire transcript. So all of your mark sheets, all pages to the application. And at this stage, we can accept your unofficial transcripts. You don't need to worry about checking the equivalency of your degree. So if you haven't studied in the UK, as that's something that our team will do when processing your application, we will calculate the international equivalence and we will compare your degree result to the UK system. Now, there may be some of you dialing in today and your degree does not equal to a UK 2-1 above, and you may be thinking, is that a barrier to entry? Well, it's not, and it's really important to note, and as I go through the application process and all the information that you need to provide, it's really important to note that the admissions committee look at applications holistically, and not one entry criteria holds more weight than the other. And the bachelor's requirement is not a hard deadline. So we understand that for some of you, maybe going away at 18, being away from home, studying might have not been your highest priority at the time, or there may have been other reasons, other factors that resulted in you not achieving a high grade. And also we recognise that for some, studying was some time away, and that since then you've changed as a person, you've grown, and your professional life has maybe taken you in a different direction, and it may not show your most recent academic capability. So as I said, we do look at applications holistically. So if you feel your profile is lower in certain areas, it's really thinking about how you can strengthen it in other ways. So if you do have a low undergraduate degree, then a way to balance that out would be to aim for a high GMAT or a GRE, which leads us on quite nicely to the next requirement. So we do have a GMAT or a GRE requirement, so you must have a score in your application. We have no preference to either test. So my advice would be is to do your research and take research into both tests, and take the test that you feel is better suited to you and will play to your strengths. For those who haven't taken a test yet, we do have a GMAT simulator on our website that you can use to practice. So that is a free resource. But that's not to suggest that we prefer the GMAT over the GRE. We certainly have no preference. So in terms of scores that we're looking for, so on the previous slide, I mentioned in terms of the GMAT, our class median is 690. But that certainly doesn't mean that if you don't have a score of 690, you won't get in. Same as if you were to have a score of 690 or above, that you'll definitely be admitted. Again, like the undergraduate degree, it's just one part of your application in your overall profile. We advise a score of 650 or above is considered competitive. And for those considering the GRE, that would be a score of 160 on your verbal and 161 on the quantitative reasoning. And again, that's not a hard requirement. So if your score falls below that, I would say it's for you to reflect on that score and really to ask yourself, does this score reflect my true capabilities? And if the answer is no, then I would suggest looking into retaking. From our perspective, it doesn't bother us how many times you've taken the test. We won't think any less of you if you've taken the test more than once. We've certainly had candidates who have taken the test a number of times. And I guess when you're taking the test for the first time, it's new, you're taking it under test conditions, and it's going to be different from the practice tests that you've taken. And if you do retake the test, you'll be better prepared, better equipped. So part of the application, you will need to input your scores and upload your score reports, and also ensure that you add Side Business School to your GMAT or your ETS account so we can verify your score. So for the GMAT, I believe you get your score report on the day you've taken the test. So you'll need to upload that document to your application, as well as adding the school to your GMAT account. And you can view our school institution code on the website on our FAQs. For the GRE, I think it actually takes a few days for your score report to come through. So do factor that in your timelines when it comes to preparing your application, as you need to upload your score report to your application. And same with the GMAT, you need to add the school to your ETS account so that we can verify your scores online. And that institution code is also on our FAQs. Your score does need to be valid. So for both the GMAT and the GRE, scores are valid for 5 years. So if you've taken it some time ago, make sure that your scores are still valid. And then also just finally, with the GMAT and GRE, we are accepting the online tests. So we are accepting online test scores. So we completely understand due to C19, there's been test centres have been closed, and some of you have taken or will be taking the test online. And yes, we accept those scores. They will be valid. They are valid for 5 years. Okay, the next requirement is, okay, so I have the video assessment, but what I'm going to do, rather annoyingly, I'm going to skip over that, as I do have, my next slide does go into that in more detail. So I'm going to move over to the English language proficiency. So we are a very international class, and a number of our students will need to take a language test. So if you are a national of a non-majority English-speaking country, then you may need to submit a language test result with your application. However, if the degree you studied was taught entirely in English, then we can consider you for a waiver and you'll be required to upload suitable evidence. So let's just say if you've studied in the UK, America, Canada, Australia, somewhere where it's clear you would have been taught in English. In the language ability section, you can complete those details as yes, you have studied using English, and upload your document. So in that case, it would just be your transcripts that you would need to upload, which you already would have uploaded as part of the undergraduate degree requirement. Now, there may be some of you that have studied in a country that isn't majority English speaking, but your degree was taught in English. So as an example, you may have studied your bachelor's degree, let's say in India or maybe Singapore, and the medium of instruction was in English. If that is the case, then you don't need to provide a language test result, and we can consider you for a waiver. So we would ask you to check your transcripts. It should state somewhere there that the medium of instruction was in English. And if so, great, you can upload that to the language ability section and can be considered for a waiver. If your transcripts don't state the instruction of language, but your degree was taught in English, then we would ask you to get in contact with the university that you studied at and ask them for a letter confirming the language of your degree. And that's really common. So if it doesn't state that on your transcript, just get in contact with the university and they should be able to draft something up for you quickly on headed paper, and you can upload a copy of the letter to your application. If you're not from a non-majority English-speaking country and have not studied your bachelor's degree in English, then you will need to provide a language test result in your application. And in terms of the tests, we accept IELTS, TOEFL, the Cambridge certificate, though I believe TOEFL and IELTS are the most common tests. Your language test result does need to be valid, and language test results are valid for 2 years. We do have minimum scores and also so overall minimum scores and also the minimum component scores that you need to meet. So unlike the GMAT, GRE and your undergraduate degree, these are hard deadlines. So if you do need to submit a language test result, you do need to ensure that you are meeting the overall scores. So for TOEFL, the overall minimum score is 110, and for IELTS, it's 7.5. I'm not going to go into detail on the individual component scores. You can view those details on our FAQ. So if you do need to provide a language test result, then I would encourage you to look on there and familiarise yourself with the individual component scores and overall scores that you will need to meet them if you do need to provide a language test result. Okay, so moving on to the work experience requirement. So we ask for at least 2 years postgraduate work experience, and we don't include internships. We want you to come equipped with real examples, real experiences that you can share with your cohort. And we don't have a preference to a particular sector or industry. Again, as talking about the diversity of the cohort, we attract several students from different backgrounds. So yes, we attract students from more typical MBA backgrounds such as finance and consulting, but then we also have candidates from, let's say, tech, engineering, social impact, not-for-profit, entrepreneurship. It really is diverse in terms of the experiences that students come with. And in terms of what the admissions committee will be looking at, so we will be looking at career progression, any leadership or leadership potential. So if you've been leading teams, projects, budgets, and also if you've had any international exposure. So if you've worked abroad or if you've worked with international clients or colleagues. Now we ask for you to upload a CV, and we do ask for that to be on one page. We do have a template that on our website that you can use, so it's a really handy guideline. You're not obliged to use that, however. So if you already have your CV on one page and it doesn't completely follow that format, that's absolutely fine, but it is really handy for you to help condense your CV down if you need to. And then also in the application, you do also get the opportunity to define your current role in more detail. So you can speak a bit more about the type of work you've been doing. So you could highlight some particular projects you've worked on, any achievements, highlights or challenges. You can do so in that space, as we recognise that a one-page CV, depending on your work experience, can be limited. So you do have the opportunity to go into a little bit more detail about your current work. And now, in terms of the post-MBA plans, so this is your post-MBA career plan in your application. So this is a vital part of your application. You're coming to do an MBA for a reason, and that might be to pivot sector, function, location, or you're looking to accelerate your career path. And the MBA at Oxford, it is a one-year program. It's fast-paced, it's intense. So when thinking about your post-MBA goals, we advise you really need to start doing that now and come onto the program with a plan. So when you open up this section on the portal, you'll see the questions, and you'll note that these questions have been designed to be reflective. And essentially, the admissions committee are looking at what it is you want to do. Where do you want to do it? Who are your ideal employers? What role it might be? Who do you know in your network that has made a similar move? How is the Oxford MBA going to help you achieve your goals? You really need to give us an insight of how realistic and achievable your goals are. So thinking about the employers, the companies that you're targeting, what is the skill set that is required? What do you know about their hiring processes? And then also, if you should be unsuccessful in achieving your post-MBA goals, what's plan B? Have you thought of a contingency plan? And we understand that plans may change whilst you're on the MBA, and we're not going to hold you to your set plans in your application should you be successful in securing a place on the program. But you really need to start doing that reflecting now and know yourself very well. There is no word count on the plan, so we are looking for a good amount of details, but not endless pages. The admissions committee receive a high number of applications, and quite frankly, we don't have time to read pages and pages of information. So get the balance right, keep it clear and keep it concise. Okay, moving on to references then. So we ask for 2 references, and we advise they can be professional or academic, though you may wish to choose 2 professional referees if you've been out of academia for a while. It doesn't have to come from a current line manager. So it could be a peer, a previous employer, a mentor, or it could even be a client. I would say think carefully of who it is you want to ask, who you want to ask to act as a referee. You want to approach someone who knows you well and who's able to comment on your strengths, on your weaknesses, on your abilities and who's able to add value to your application. And also my advice would be to think about the person and not the job title. So sometimes candidates think if having, let's just say, the CEO of their company provide them with a reference, or another senior manager, that will hold more weight and strengthen their application. While it's not if they don't know you well and they're not able to provide the committee with details on who it is you are, your strengths, your weaknesses. So do think carefully of who it is you want to ask, and make sure they're aware of the deadlines and when they need to submit. Your referees do need to submit their recommendations by the relevant stage deadline, and we won't chase references for you. So we ask you to register their details on your application, so on the portal. So it's a really good approach to ask them in advance. Think about it early, who it is that you want to ask to act as a referee. And when you've registered their details, your referees will receive an email. They will have to answer a few questions, so just rating your competencies against a few different behaviours, and then uploading a letter of recommendation. We do ask that your referees should have a professional email address. So when entering their details, do stick to professional email addresses only. If they don't, however, have a professional email address, so they may be retired or not currently employed, then yes, we can accept a reference from a personal email address. But what you would need to do is you'll need to ensure that you ask your referee at the start of their reference for you, they must state the reason for using a personal email address. So they must do that at the start of the letter of recommendation for you, and also ensure that they do provide full contact details. Okay, and then in terms of the supporting statement, so there is an essay question that you need to complete, and it's a very open question. The question is there anything that you would like the admissions committee to be aware of that's not been included in your application? So this is a great opportunity to strengthen your application and make yourself stand out. So you could use this to highlight a particular achievement in your professional or personal life. It could be a personal experience that has shaped you. You may have found that whilst working on your application, it's been very professional focused. So you may want to highlight something you've done in your personal time, a hobby, a passion you have. So maybe you're part of a sporting club or a society, or you volunteer in your spare time. Something that tells us more about you and what's important to you, what your values are, and what keeps you motivated. You may wish to use that space to address an aspect of your profile that might be slightly weaker. So maybe lower academics. So if your bachelor's degree result is lower, or you have a lower GMAT or GRE, but there are particular reasons behind that, and if you feel it doesn't represent your capabilities, and by doing that you are demonstrating some self-awareness to the admissions committee. There is a word limit for the essay. It's 250 words. So when you think about it, it really is a short space. So it will be a short statement. So do take some time to consider what you want to use that space for, as it really is a great opportunity for you to strengthen your application. And do use that space as well. That would be my advice. I have seen some candidates not using it, which I think that it really is a waste. So do look to use that space, do look to say something. Okay, video assessment. So I did say that I'll go into detail on the video assessment, so I will now. So once you've completed all the details that I mentioned in the previous slide, so you've uploaded all your documents, so you've uploaded your GMAT or your GRE score report, your bachelor's degree transcripts, your supporting statement, you've completed your career development plan. So once you've completed all those details and submitted your application, you will then shortly receive a link to complete the video assessment. And the video assessment has been designed so we get to see you, hear you, and see how you're going to react to timed questions. And it also gives you the opportunity to bring some life to your application. So there are 5 questions in total, 4 video questions and 1 written question. So for the video question, you will see question 1. So you'll actually watch a member of the admissions team asking the question. You'll then have a limited time to have a think, gather yourself, gather your thoughts. And then the video will start recording and you will have a short time, around 1.5 minutes, to answer the question. So there are 4 video questions. 2 of them are motivational. So motivations about the MBA and why the Oxford MBA. So shouldn't be something that's too surprising to you all. And then the other 2 are randomized. So they are competency based. So questions that are likely to paint a scenario and ask you how you would react or how you did react. So the questions might actually give you the opportunity to bring in some real life examples that you've had. They are quite classic work type scenarios, and you're able to show us how you would react quickly, how you're able to think on your feet, almost like an interview, though the video assessment doesn't replace the interview. And then for the written question, this can be a very random, it could be a very fun question. Some of the questions are slightly out there. And for the written question, we're assessing your written English. We're looking at your answer does need to flow, and also how you're framing your point or argument for the question that's being asked. The written question is also timed, so you'll be typing against the clock. So I appreciate the video assessment might sound unnerving to some of you. You may have not had experience in completing this type of assessment before, but there is the opportunity to practice. So you can practice as much as you like before taking the live assessment, getting used to the platform, watching yourself, hearing yourself back, and those recorded answers that you complete will just be for you. No one else in the admissions committee will get to see those. But when it comes to the real assessment, you only get the 1 take. So do take advantage of the practice questions. The video assessment does also need to be completed by the stage deadline. So top tip, look to get your application in. So everything I mentioned in the previous slide, look to get that completed, let's say, at least a week or a few days before the relevant stage deadline. And that way you have enough time to take advantage of the practice questions and you're not having to rush the assessment right to the deadline. And when you do the final take, I would say relax, be yourself, and show us your personality. Okay, so thinking of how you can strengthen your profile, and these are generally the competencies that we would be looking at. So if I take you around this wheel, and if I start at career vision. So as I mentioned in the previous slides, your career vision is something that is really important. It really is a vital part of your application. So you're looking to do an MBA for a reason. You're looking to achieve a particular goal. What can the MBA do for your career? So you need to know what it is that we offer here in Oxford and convince the admissions committee that you have a good vision of where you'll see yourself in the future and how realistic your goals are. So awareness. So you do need to understand yourself. You need to be self-aware, well tuned into who you are, and you can show this in your career development plan. So your awareness of the particular sector, industry, or the goal that you have. So how realistic you feel it is to achieve that goal. Or you could look to demonstrate this in your supporting statement. So maybe you're addressing a weakness that you feel that you have in your profile. leadership. So we will be looking at leadership skills or leadership potential. It's not a requirement for you to be in a leadership position or have management experience for the MBA. So I'd say your professional experience section of your application may show us your leadership qualities. So in terms of career progression, maybe you've led projects, people, teams, budgets, or even in your supporting statement, you could look to demonstrate leadership skills. And it doesn't have to be work related. It could be something outside of work that demonstrates leadership. So maybe you're a captain in a sporting team, or you run an initiative outside of the work. And then also in the video assessment, the competency-based questions, they may be around the topic of leadership. So you could demonstrate that in your video answer. And then communication. So when it comes to your application, a lot of your application is words on a page. But I'd say really look to get those words to paint a picture for us. And then in terms of your verbal communication as well, that's of course equally important, and your video assessment will show us that. So really do take the time to practice your video assessment before you take the live take. So practice, show us your personality, and with you practicing, you'll be more confident when completing the live take. And then teamwork. So teamwork is really important on the MBA. So being part of a cohort, it really is a collaborative experience. So we want to see how you can work with other people, and also how you're able to get on with others, and the eagerness to learn from others. So looking to share your experiences. And you could exploit teamwork in a number of ways in your application. So you could demonstrate that in your essay, maybe reflecting on your current role, or it could be in your work experience. So you may look to talk about some of the teamwork there. The video questions as well. So the competency-based questions, there may be a question around teamwork. So you can think of some examples there that you could use should you get asked a question in your video assessment. Okay, so here are some sensible next steps. So if you haven't done so already, download a brochure. So I haven't spoken about the course curriculum today. So if you are quite early on in your research, you can download a brochure from our website, which will go into more detail of the core courses and the elective modules that are available. Connect with our team and request a profile review. So the team are more than happy to get in contact with you. So we do have profile reviews that you can submit. So on our website, you can complete the form to request a profile review and upload your CV. Then a member from the recruitment and admissions team will get in contact. So a member who's dedicated to the particular region where you're currently residing will get in touch with you and can look to have a conversation about the MBA. Do look to connect with current MBA students and alumni. So LinkedIn is a really great platform to do that. So, and with our current students and alumni, they're the ones who have been on program. They can provide you with an insight of what it's like to be on the MBA outside business school. And also thinking about the goals that you have in mind if you're looking to transition into a particular sector industry, you could look to connect with students who have been able to do that, to hear about their experiences and how they've been able to make that happen. But do prepare for your GMAT or your GRE. So if you haven't taken either of those tests, do ensure that you are well prepared. Don't underestimate it. As mentioned earlier, we do have the GMAT simulator that you can use. You can practice for free on our website, so you should be able to find that resource available and you can register for that. And then do register for webinars. So we do have a number of online events upcoming, webinars like this. I believe we do have a virtual open day scheduled, I believe towards the end of September, but do have a look on our events page on the website where you can register for any particular sessions that may be of interest to you. And then also, if you are on our mailing list as well, you will get notified of any new events that you can register for. And then finally, do start your application. So applications are open, so they opened on the 1st of August. So you can start your application now. And that's also even if you're not aiming to submit for stage 1. So if you are aiming to submit in some of the later stages, so stage 2, 3 or 4 for 2021, you can go ahead now and start your application. You can create an account on the portal. You can have a look at some of the information that's expected from you that I've talked about earlier today. So as an example, you could look at the post MBA career plan. You could look at those questions, and that can get you thinking and start preparing those details as you start thinking about the rest of your application. Okay, so that's everything from me now. So I'm going to go through and look at your questions. So we do have some time. So I did say I'd be around 40 minutes. So I've been quite good. I've been able to stick to my time. So what I'm going to do is just going to have a look and see at your questions. I'm hoping that maybe I've covered some of the questions as I've gone through the presentation, but let's just have a look. So I can see there's a few questions about, can you submit applications without particular test results, so without your GMAT or your GRE or your IELTS, and then also questions about the Kira talent, so the video assessment, can that be submitted after 11th of September? So no, your application needs to be complete. So that everything that I've discussed, so we need to have everything, so a GMAT or a GRE test result. If you are required to provide a language test result, then you need to have that. And then yes, your video assessment does also need to be completed by the 11th of September. So everything needs to be completed in order for your application to be considered. Okay, so I've got some questions regarding the bachelor's degree. So in terms of, so on the application, it does ask you do need to populate your final result. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, you don't need to worry about converting that result. So if you haven't studied in the UK, you don't need to make that international equivalency. What I would say is just input whatever it is on your transcripts, on your bachelor's degree certificate. So whatever it does state there as your final result, just upload that. So even if it just says Bachelor of, let's just say as an example, accounting, you should be able to input those details. And then as long as you are uploading your transcripts, so you're uploading all of your transcripts, all of your mark sheets, the admissions committee can make the relevant conversion of your degree. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, so I've got some questions about, is there any difference between the stage deadlines? So as I mentioned earlier, so we have 4 stage deadlines, and I would say that there's not really much difference between stages 1 to 3. I would say that your chances of being successful are broadly the same. Stage 3 tends to be a large stage for us, as that deadline does coincide with an application with a university wide scholarship deadline. So with that in mind, it does become a large deadline. So with that, And then with stage 4 being the last deadline in the academic cycle, it can be quite competitive. But then also it's getting that balance of ensuring that you are submitting the best application as possible. And if that best application comes in for you is in a later stage, then that would be the advice. So I hope that answers that question. So there's some questions about the GMAT score report. So yes, if you've taken the online version, you need to upload your GMAT report. So even if you have sent your score reports to us, so for GMAT, sorry, so if you've added us to your GMAT account, you still need to upload your score report. That is a mandatory requirement of the application. And that's also the same for the GRE. So you still need to upload your score report, as well as ensuring that you do add the school on as a recipient so we can verify your scores. Hope that answers that question, Kelly. Okay, so I believe there's some questions regarding job prospects and some particular questions in terms of some of the sectors that you're looking at. So I believe I can see some questions on consulting and finance. So what I would recommend is having a look at the pages on our website on the Careers Development Centre. So we do have a Careers Development Centre here, and that provision is something that's provided to you on your MBA. So so right at the start, we say that you do engage with the Careers Development Centre team, and this also adds into the post MBA plan section that I've talked about. So I've mentioned that being it really is a vital part, and we advise that you need to come onto the program with a plan, and then also by doing that you're able to hit the ground running when you start the MBA, so you can engage with the Careers Development Centre. But also do look at the pages, the Careers Development Centre pages on the website. There's further information, and there is also you'll find the most latest employment reports as well, which will give you some really useful information in terms of job sectors, industries, what MBA candidates have gone on to. So that really is a great resource of information. So I would direct you to have a look at those details. Okay, so I'm just looking through the questions. I can see there's a lot coming through, and I'm just conscious of time. So I'm just going to try and look at questions that do have a common thread. So there's a lot of questions regarding scholarships. So yes, we have a number of scholarships available. So we have a number of side business school scholarships, and then we also do have some university-wide scholarships as well that you might be applicable for. So I would recommend having a look at the funding pages on our website. And for the side business school scholarships, generally they don't have a separate application. So if you meet the criteria, when your application is being considered by the admissions committee, you'll also be considered for particular scholarships. And then in terms of the university-wide scholarships, so we do have a number of university-wide scholarships, and I think I did actually see a question regarding the Pershing Square scholarship. So that is a university-wide scholarship that you could apply for. And those university-wide scholarships, they do have, some of them do have separate application processes, and they have application deadlines. So you need to be aware of those. You need to factor that in when looking to prepare and submit your application. So generally that is why stage 3 does tend to be a big round, as it does coincide with that a university-wide scholarship deadline. In terms of your chances of receiving a scholarship, that all comes down to your application, as each application is reviewed individually. So we look at your entire application. For scholarships that we do have, so yes, you could say in the early stages, so in stage 1, that is when the scholarship pot is at its healthiest. And also another important thing to note actually when it comes to funding, so we do have funding available throughout our stages. So let's just say, as an example, you applied in stage 1 and you were successful in receiving an offer on the programme, but you weren't successful in receiving a scholarship. Your application will then still be considered again in stages 2, 3 and 4 for scholarship, for any funding and any funding opportunities. So with you applying early, that's one thing to think about in terms of it is a benefit. If you're in a position to get your application in early, then you are giving yourself ample opportunities to be considered for scholarships. So some questions about how soon do you receive the Kira link after you've submitted your application? So good question, Alison. I believe that it may just take up to a day that you receive the link, and that link is valid for it's valid. So thinking about the stage 1 deadline, so if you were to submit now your application and then you get your video assessment link within the next day or 2, so that would be valid right up until the stage 1 deadline of the 11th of September. And as I mentioned, so for those of you aiming to submit your application for stage 1, the deadline does fall at the end of the day, so it's 11:59 UK time. So I hope that answers that question. So some questions about how much time after submitting your application do you hear back for an interview, or subsequently whether you've not been admitted or not. So I would say have a look on our website. So you would have seen on my slide that we have the application deadline, so those 4 stage deadlines, and then on our website there's further details, further dates in regards to those round deadlines in terms of the dates that you will find out shortlisting decisions and also final decisions. So for stage 1, so if you were to submit your application, so if your application is complete, it will be the admissions committee will review your application within our stage 1 deadline. So the deadline is the 11th of September, and then I believe in terms of the next stage, which is shortlisting decision, so you'll find out if you've been successful in being shortlisted for an interview or not. I believe that's on the 25th of September, and then there'll be further dates on there that will tell you when you'll find when final decisions will be released. So there is that information on the website, so do have a look at that, as that's something you can factor in as well when it comes to preparing your application. You'll know the dates of when it is that you're likely to hear from us, and then if you have been successful in being shortlisted for an interview, you'll also see the dates of when we'll release final decisions within that stage. Well, Alison asks a really good question as well. Do your references have to be in before you record your Kira video? So great question. No, they don't. But what you need to do is you need to ensure that you complete the referee section of your application. So what I mean by that is you need to add your referee's name and email address. So that should complete that section of that application. And then you should be able to go ahead and submit your application. So even if your referees have not submitted their references for you, and then that way you will still get the Kira video. So you can still get the Kira video assessment if your referees have not submitted their reference for you, but just bear in mind that they still need to ensure that they submit their references for you by the relevant stage deadline. But as long as you've inputted their details so you're able to complete that aspect of the application, then you should be able to go ahead and submit and get the video assessment link. I hope that's clear. Okay, so we've got some questions about interviews. So in terms of next stages, so once you've submitted your application will be processed by the admissions team, and then your application is reviewed by the admissions committee. It's reviewed twice, and then a decision will be released to whether if you've been shortlisted for an interview or not. So interviews will be conducted either by a member of the recruitment and admissions team, or it could be from, it may be from an industry advisor. Interviews they're generally 30 minutes, and there'll be questions about, it'll be more about you, your application, so thinking about your motivations for the MBA, in particular your post MBA plans, and there'll also be some competency-based questions as well. And then in the past, so we've held interviews in person as well as online as well. So given the nature of the geographical diversity that we have on the MBA. So we've certainly, in the past, we have conducted interviews online. Due to the current situation that we are in, all interviews are now online, and that would be yes, that's certainly the expectation for stage one. So if you have been successful, it would be an online interview. There'd be no requirement for you to come in person to have that interview. Okay, so a few questions about references. So what should your recommender focus on when writing the letter of recommendation? So good question. I think if they're able to provide some real examples of what it is that you've been working on. So in terms of the whatever the relationship you have with the particular recommender, so how can they recommend you? So how, in terms of what it is that they know about you, can they comment on your strengths or your weaknesses? If they've got some real examples. And as I mentioned, there are some behaviours that we ask them to comment on. So in terms of those particular behaviours, they can expand on that in their letter of recommendation. And I suppose it's for you really think about who's able to add value to your application. So who knows you well, who's able to comment on your strengths, on your abilities, how likely it is that you are going to succeed on the MBA. So I hope that's answered that question. Okay, so I can see there's some questions about the supporting statement. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a very open question, and that really gives you the opportunity to discuss anything that you'd like to. So anything that you feel that's going to strengthen your application. So that could be a particular achievement that you've had. It could be a hobby, a passion and interest that you have. It could be to address lower academics. It's entirely up to you. There's no there's no right answer to that. It's really whatever it is that you want to make the admissions committee aware of and what you think is going to strengthen your application. Okay, so I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just trying to look through. Apologies if I've not got to your questions. Um, and then just finally, I'll just answer. There's some question about colleges and also do colleges accept families or partners of the MBA candidate? So with colleges, so if you are successful in being admitted on to the MBA program, then you will get the option to choose a college. You only get the one choice, and if you are successful in receiving that choice of your college, then great, that's that process completed. However, if you don't, then unfortunately there's not a second choice. You will be randomly selected into a college. But what I would say about the colleges that we have, they're all unique, and certain colleges do have their own individual quirks. And I'm sure if you were to get in touch with previous students, with alumni, they'll all claim that their college was the best. And then in terms of, do colleges accept families or partners? Yes. So in terms of so your families and partners can certainly get involved with you with your time and on the MBA. Certain colleges do, if you choose to go for college accommodation, certain colleges do offer couples or families accommodation. And what I would say to that, if we might recently, I believe it was a couple of months ago, we did actually hold, we had a dedicated family, a families and partners webinar where alumni spoke of their experiences of coming to Oxford with their partners, with their young families. And what I would say, if you do get in contact with us, get in contact with the team for the recording, and we can certainly send you that, and that will give you some further information on families and partners. So sadly, we are out of time. I'm really sorry if I didn't get a chance to answer your questions. I did try to go through questions that there was a common thread, but our email address is on the slide in front of you. So if I didn't get a chance, please get in contact with us. We can answer your question. Or and also I would recommend going on to the FAQ section on our website, which does have some great resource of information available. This session will be recorded. It is recorded, and we will follow up with you with the recording so you can watch back again. Otherwise, good luck with your applications. Good luck to those of you who are aiming to submit in stage 1. I hope you found the session useful. And yes, as I said, do get in touch with us and we can arrange further conversations and give you advice. But otherwise, good luck. Thank you for listening, and goodbye for now. Thank you.